Welcome back to part 2 of Harvey's episode on Making a Mentor. We got some feedback, shout out to Billy, on how to make the transition between part 1 and part 2 a little bit better. So we're gonna try that now. In part 1, we discussed a little bit more about how Harvey got into the industry itself, some of the first few jobs that he got, and how he transitioned from free work into paid work. Along with some tips that you should definitely go back and listen to if you haven't already, on how to stand out as a videographer on set, how to sort of behave and work best with your clients. In this episode, we're going to talk a little bit more about the day-to-day, so what is it actually like for Harvey when he wakes up and turns up on set, what sort of jobs is he expected to do, and what are the differences with the roles on set as well. So I hope you enjoy.
We're on.
We're on.
Go for it.
Sweet.
So we'll cut that.
Yeah, well, this is the start part 2. So I guess what would be good to think about is if we could get like a few examples of different industries, because you touched on it before. I'd like to know what the difference between like shooting a music video is to, I think you did like Soccer AM, for example, or something like.
One adverts as well.
Yeah,
so I think it's like, particularly music videos and adverts in my head are like two different worlds, because like, not that they're both not hyper artistic, because they are, but one of them you're like supporting an artist's vision, and one of them you're like supporting like a brand image or like a marketing scheme or something. So does that change the way you perceive and lay out your shots?
I certainly think so. Like with music videos, you have an ability to be creative on the day as well. You know, like if things work on the day, you can use them. Whereas like say you're doing an advert or like a commercial of any form, there's certainly a lot less experimentation. You know, ultimately, with a music video, it's like an art form. Like it's subjective. Like like it's down to the band themselves or whoever represents them to sort of choose with the director or whoever's producing the video what the vision is for that. Whereas with an advert, it has like it will have specific time constraints and things like that, and you need to build a narrative in that time for, that effectively gets across the message of what you want. You're paying for space with adverts. Like with the music video, the money will come in from the video, but it's not necessarily the purpose of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely think that that's the case. I lost where I was going there for a sec, but yeah.
So is there any is there an example of an advert that you could pick, like if you could go through the journey of you woke up on the day, and here's what your shift looks like?
Yeah. So probably this was towards the start of the year. Did a number of adverts for the NHS. So again, as much as I generally I work on camera or assist, like sometimes I can do other bits here and there. But so on this specific shoot, I was like the assistant camera. So we were filming in a hospital. So our day was spent. So got up, got to shoot, unloaded the van, loaded it all onto like a trolley, which is easy to transport around the location. A lot of them are sort of like that. Like you'll load all the gear from a van onto a trolley so that you can push it all around. Okay. Get into the location, meet the media representatives of the hospital that we were filming with, and then go around the location, getting all the content that was required. But certainly part of that, because you're working in a hospital, like people are busy saving lives. You have to. Timing's important, because if you've said to someone, we'll be in your ward, or we'll be in your department at 11 a.m. and you're running late on something else, well, they can't wait around for you. They've got to go and do an X-ray or something along them lines. It's important that you shoot as well organised. So on that sort of thing, say like where I'm specifically an assistant camera for someone, my job will be to support the cameraman in any way. Sometimes my opinion, a second opinion, but largely looking after the equipment, keeping the equipment clean, making sure that he's got anything, he or she rather, I should say, because I do work for and with a number of female photographers and videographers, making sure they have all of the equipment available to them and ready, batteries are charged, SD cards are wiped. Sometimes like they will trust you to put the settings onto the camera. Practically they shouldn't have to pick that up until they've got to press the record button. You should do that for them. So certainly that day was spent moving equipment around, setting the camera up, whether it was handheld or it was on a tripod, or whether it was on like a glide cam, which is like something that allows the camera to balance in different positions, and just working through the departments while making sure that I was on time with everything that I did, so that as a collective, you're all on time to, get to where you need to be and keep the day smooth.
So you're kind of basically, in a way, I might be wrong, but in my head I'm seeing that you're basically being what you wish you had if you were doing that. Someone saw in your jobs behind the scenes.
100%, like, that's definitely true, like, and in the future, like, when I further use assistant, like, I've not really used assistants too much at the moment, but, like, it's something that I'm sure I'll do further down the line. That's something that, I'd want and somewhat expect out of them. I don't want, as much as you want an assistant who learns, you want someone that learns quickly, so that they take the pressure off your job. That's the point in them, as well, say if it's an instance where you're a director of photography, you're having creative input, so say for example it's a music video, like you might be making decisions on the fly, so you need to stand there and be able to be creative, and like make creative decisions, and not have to think at the same time about, I've got to set this up, like
I've got to clean
it's
the
distracting,
camera
like like it's not necessarily distracting, but it takes away energy from other things that you need to think about that can impact the quality of the work at the end of the day.
Yeah. So with like my question for the advertisement was going to be that as well. So like in that specific example, are you given a script that everything's going to be shot X, Y, Z? Like you given everything for that?
Not necessarily, and don't get me wrong, things like that can change on the day due to external factors. So in that example, there was a case where we had to go to one of the departments first before we went to another because they had to do something. So that slightly changed our day and things like that. There's usually, certainly, there's like a shot list. There'll be like a brief. Like you'll know what you're doing before you get there on the day. Everyone's way of working with it though is different. Some people, like aren't as prepared as others or leave it more open to interpretation. It's all dependent. Preparation's a big one. Like, in most instances, someone will have gone to the location before, done a recce, like seen what they can shoot, and like they'll be knowledgeable on every aspect of it. So, where we can put light in, are there enough sockets, what's the camera angle going to be like, what's the reverb like in the room for the sound, they take every aspect, into thought, because if you get there on the day and one thing's out, it can cause a big problem for everyone, and one problem in one department can slow the entire production down. Yeah. Because it can be a big thing,
Yeah, of course.
So I never really thought about this. So from an audio side of things, have you ever been responsible for the video and the audio of something?
Yeah, certainly. Or? So like on some projects that I've previously done, like, in a lot of instances, you can get microphones that mount on top of cameras, like you will have seen them, like people do interview yourselves with like DSLRs like this with like a Rode mic on top.
Yeah.
So, in that instance, you're solely responsible, especially if you're a self-shooter. If it's something that you're doing, so like say you're doing interviews with someone or like you're doing an event and stuff like that, that is all your responsibility.
Yeah.
You've not necessarily got a sound recordist with you, So I think having some knowledge of sound, if it's camera that you want to get into, is really good. It's actually a funny coincidence because, and I suppose this is quite I think this is quite an important message of the whole subject of the podcast, really.
Yeah.
When I went to uni, I did a film and media production degree, I barely touched a camera in 3 years. I actually specialised in sound recording and sound design.
No way.
Nice.
Yeah. So when I started in the industry as a runner, I basically one day got asked to assist the cameraman, and it snowballed from there. Like my specialism was originally sound, like, and there will be people that do multiple jobs. Like you don't want a jack of all trades. No one wants a jack of all trades. That's the thing, is that like it's one of those where certainly on bigger productions you have one job and you're part of one department. But I do know people who like, you know, might be a cameraman, but like have sound recording skills and equipment. Like someone will go, oh, can you come on this shoot for a day and like do the sound, you know, that will be comfortable doing that. Like you do have to have a knowledge of what other departments do, like even if it's not what you do yourself. Like, so through asking the makeup artist if she's ready a lot of times, because we've been ready to shoot, you know, and she's applying makeup to someone. Even though I've never done makeup, I've certainly never worn makeup, have some knowledge of makeup, which I didn't think I would, but that's just sort of happened, you know.
You're a freelancer though as well, right? So I'm thinking, fair enough, I'm imagining in a production it's much better to have someone in their specialist position. But if you're doing something on your own, you're going to want to have the full thing, aren't you? Like, it's going to make you more employable at least,
yeah,
right?
certainly, like,
Crazy.
and that's the thing, is that if you're doing, you know, a lot of these shoots that I've been talking about, and I would say, to be honest, the large majority of my work so far has been on behalf of someone else, so like working for them or working for a company and things like that. Shoots on your own are, you know, your liaise with the client, and you need to know about every aspect of what you're going to do. If you're recording sound or not, you need to be that person on the location recce. Like, it's your responsibility, and I think that's important to know. The equipment that you do have and that you're going to take on a shoot like that, you need to know. You need to know what you're doing with it, you know.
Yeah.
And I guess if you could
Just
tie
before
it...
you carry on, is that defo recording?
Yeah, because it says rec.
So I'll cut that out. It's because it didn't say red. I was imagine if later he's like, I'm so sorry.
That light's definitely on, isn't it?
Yeah, the red light's on.
Fine, it's alright.
Thank you.
If we tie it to, I guess, the audience, of the people that are going to be like listening to this. So, in terms of like music videos, have you? We kind of asked this to like a few promoters and stuff as well.
Yeah.
What is like the ideal client? If we're a band and we need your help coming for a music video, do we come prepared with a full concept, or have you worked with bands?
Not necessarily. No. A lot of bands might want a video and have an idea but not know where to go with it.
Okay.
That's part of, you know, again, sometimes, and there might be directors who someone has done the work for them and they just go on the day and direct. Oh, like same with, you know, with video people and stuff like that. Whereas sometimes, and it's dependent on your own skills, like someone might come to you and be like, I have this concept, you know, and then it's your job to turn their concept into, you know, their dream, you know, like their reality sort of thing, you know, where that's part of your work. It can vary from project to project that's the case. Some people have a really developed idea and they're like, oh, I want this, and they might even provide examples and things like that. And then others, it might be a case of, here's the song, have a listen to this. We have this idea of, oh, you know, with like a dystopian sort of video, you know, or like an apocalyptic video or something like that.
Yeah.
And then you connect the dots and connect the words in the songs to what you can do. Music videos are good in terms of creating a video because you've already had the pacing from the music to edit around. Do you know what I mean?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, you're not. It's not like when you do an advert, like you are building that from scratch.
You're the
like,
whole story.
Yeah. You've got all the sound, things like that. Like that is, you know, you've got to do all of that, generally speaking.
Okay.
Whereas on a music video, the sound's already there. You know, the tone of it. You know, you're probably not gonna, if you've got like an extremely happy like pop style song, have a really, you know, death metal video, or you know,
I
like
get what you're saying.
you already have, you know, the back like. The
and as a creative, you're being inspired by that sound.
Yeah, that is your influence predominantly, and then they connect the word, you know, like I say, dystopian or apocalyptic, or you know, sunshine and rainbows to it or whatever, and then you then make that connection, and then if it's a production where they're like, well, now put this in your hands, we're available on this date. Yeah, you then source the location, you can source props, all of that, you know, like that can be your responsibility at times. So you don't necessarily have to have extreme knowledge on every topic, but having a good understanding and adhering to the style like is really crucial. Like, so being able to find people that look right for the roles, you know, locations that look right, but also give you access to that sort of thing. And if they don't, being able to provide. So, for example, if you work in an abandoned building that you know has no power, you need to power your gear through batteries or, you know, like whatever, and being prepared for that. Because again, that's one of them. If you get to one of them locations and something runs out or something dies, you got nothing.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
It's a learning curve, isn't it? Once you
Yeah, it is a big learning curve. And it does happen. I once went on a shoot from to Liverpool, and the production company that I was working for is sort of Manchester way is based. And we got to the shoot and opened the camera case and went, oh yeah, all the SD cards still on my desk.
Well, we can't.
9 a.m. in the
Yeah, I was
morning.
gonna say.
9 a.m. in the morning, had to drive back from Liverpool to Manchester to get the SD cards to come back. And that's, say it's, how far a drive's that? About 45 minutes an hour?
Yeah.
One way. So that's 2 hours behind already.
Yeah. We literally
Your day's
did
just
that as
started.
well. We turned up at this shoot, got all of this stuff set up and ready. I opened my bag, no camera. I was like, oh, no.
2 homes, did we go?
We had enough time though.
I feel like sometimes, I know this is so stupid, but sometimes when you make those type of mistakes, they're so good because you never make them again.
Oh, yeah.
Once you get to that, like, I know there's certain things now that I've done that I now, when I leave the house, I'm like, what can I not do again? Seriously, and I go there and I look at it, like, even stuff like, I just think, so in a way, that's what I think so interesting about this, is that a lot of people in this industry at the moment, particularly with, like, in the whole creative industry, I suppose, like, because of COVID and all this kind of retrained stuff, anyone who's out there who's managing to kind of do anything in the creative art that they want to work with that's enough to, like, survive and eat is, like, has been through some lessons that no one could teach them.
Yeah, 100%.
There's no way that you could go to school and learn that shit, because some of it is you just go out and you just actually failed at it five times.
I think making mistakes is important though, like you say, like you have to make mistakes. Like, no one's perfect. You're gonna drop something at some point, or you might say the wrong thing, or mid-shot you might accidentally just sort of walk into frame not realising and ruin the shot. It will happen, and you go, oh shit, sorry. It's like it's a natural thing, but there's a difference between that and clumsiness. That's like paying attention all the time is important. That's part of what I mean, where, like, if you stood about on your phone
And
because, like, you're not needed, for example, which does happen. They might be like, I'll just take a minute, or like, even in that, like, if the video's going on and they're recording and it's stay out the shot, like, you're just sort of there on your phone and not paying attention. The next time you might you might walk into an area of the shot or something like that they've moved around and you've not noticed that they're going to film from that angle, all of a sudden then you're in shot, or
they've made some kind of creative decision that you just didn't.
There's all sorts that can sort of not necessarily go wrong, but be like sort of change in the moment.
I wonder if we could what would be, like, the biggest mistake that you've made and learned from?
That's
the biggest mistake that I've learned.
Because I can name a million that we got.
It's a good question. That it's a good question. Take a minute.
It is a good question. I got home from a shoot. It wasn't a crucial mistake, but it is a mistake. I got home from a shoot after doing behind the scenes photos for the shoot. Even though, so I was actually in that moment sort of doing two jobs, which, like, you don't do on all shoots, but it was just what was needed for that shoot was the demand. So I was doing assistant camera work, but whilst I was doing that, whilst the cameraman was filming, I was getting behind the scenes photos of him, of the production, stuff like that.
Do you get told about that before you're about to come on, or is it?
Well, most of the time you'll know what you're doing, like, and some people want you to do one thing, and some might be a little bit more flexible, like. Okay. But yeah, I just got home from the shoot and just, like, I think I'd left my card in the camera for a day or something, and I turned it on and I was like, oh, I want to shoot something on that, and just formatted the card. I was like, oh, I had all those photos on there.
So, could we talk about that a little bit? Because I feel like I've done this on a few cards where now they just do not respond, and I've just lost loads of these sorts of things. And do you know what? Storage is probably, if you can help us with this.
Storage is the biggest issue in my life.
Yeah,
right now.
like, we recorded our last video, 21 gigs. Honestly, we fill up SD cards like it's no tomorrow. And
you must have some high performance SDs, like.
Yeah, they are fast.
And you must like work a lot with clients where you're transferring files like this over.
Yeah.
Like, how have you got to the point where you are at now, where you're managing it? Because
a 2 terabyte hard drive.
Right. Okay.
They're quite important. maybe 2 of those,
I was gonna
or
say.
7. It doesn't matter.
I've got 2. But
Just a lot of them. Just having a lot of them is very important. Sorry, what was the second bit to what you asked?
So the client side of things.
Yeah.
How are you like? So we want to share a lot of videos together.
Yeah,
or
yeah.
like want to edit the same video in our spare time and do different things with it. How are you like sharing data across?
Oh, so a lot of the time, like, I use WeTransfer quite a lot. Have you ever used that?
Yeah, we use
WeTransfer's really good for that sort of thing.
It's 2 gig limit, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you're cheap like us and use it for free.
So you've got the pro version.
Well, I don't have the pro version, but like, generally speaking, like, definitely. I mean,
It's the way to go.
it depends on, again, different clients and what different clients want. Sometimes on a shoot it'll be a case of the client brings a hard drive with them as well, so you just do it there and there.
Yeah.
You know, but another good one that I do use sometimes is like I'll upload to Google Drive, and then just give them a link.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got ya.
Because that's what we did
Yeah.
for YouTube.
So you could just make a new one and give it them.
Yeah.
I've just noticed our camera is about to die.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
wanna finish.
we're doing really well for time. We've got 25 minutes. I've got one more major question.
That's
Right,
okay.
I can fit
Go
it.
for it.
So I've got to remember it now. I've had it all this time. Is what would, right?
Yeah.
If you were transported in a room, right, to you just going into lockdown, right, and you give them some things that you've picked up now, even if you were going to go on the same trajectory and get the opportunities that you got, if you were to give yourself 2 or 3 like top tips
If I was
that
starting
you've
from-
learned now from your
Yeah,
experience to you back then, what would you tell yourself?
I would, if I want to work for a company, show interest in them. Like, don't, the thing that I said earlier about sort of generic emails and send them to everyone, they don't work. People get them all the time. I know for a fact they do. Like, they don't work. Show an interest. They still might not get back to you. Keep your head up with it. Don't let it get you down. Persistence is key.
Yeah.
If 1 week you call a company and they say, I've not got anything, there's nothing wrong with calling them again the next week, or as much as you want. If you mither them too, if they feel mithered by you and don't want to work with you, they'll block you or whatever, there's nothing wrong with being persistent. And further than that, I think looking further than not just making it about money. It's money's important, of course it is, and it's like it can be a challenging thing to go in. So it's probably when you start like having another job that like is that you're not entirely dependent on this little amount of work, because you will start out slowly and grow from there. Patience is key. But yeah, not always thinking about money. Like, that's fine.
We can finish without that.
Yeah, no, we'll just put a little screen on it.
Looking at things that influence you and understanding how they work. Not just going, I love that shot. Or understand how it works and try and look at different influences. You never know who you're going to be influenced by.
Yeah.
So I've looked at photographers from as far back as 1930s, things like that. Their work and aspects of that, and it is applicable, like not necessarily in the technology, but I mean, in the way that they go about it. Yeah.
We do the same with marketing. So like we've got a group of because we build all of the marketing for Making a Mentor ourselves. And like it is just full of screenshots of whenever we see ads or whenever we see reels, and we just go, love this. We're gonna take influence.
It's true.
I should sit there for the end of it. It'd be funny. Should I just sit in the middle now for the end of it while there's one last one?
Oh yeah, of course we've still got this.
Yeah, why not? Why not? We'll just sit in the
I
middle
was
for the
gonna
end
say
of
as
it.
well, hey!
It's lovely.
I feel like as well though, one thing that's clear to me is like I think some people will want to get into this industry but won't live and breathe it and love it as much as you.
That's half the thing, is that like if it's what you want to do, you've got to be passionate about it.
That's what I mean.
I'm not passionate about every job that I work on.
Yeah.
I'm not, but I know that the jobs that I am will come.
Yeah.
Like, so just stick with it and be persistent. If you don't necessarily enjoy the first shoot that you're on, it's not the end of the world. Like they will come. Some days drag, obviously. Some days don't. One day I spent doing 13 hours taking photos of rooms.
That sounds fun.
That was horrendous. But it was like the first opportunity that I'd got to work with someone. So I worked my arse off.
Oh, I see, because it was someone you wanted to work with.
Because it's someone that I'd never worked with before. It was boring. I worked my arse off nonetheless. But the creative ones come, and they make it worthwhile as long as it is what you want to do.
I think you also you surprise yourself in the things that the transferable skills you learn from taking all those shots.
You learn skills from So this is maybe, I know we're coming to the end now, but this is like one of the sort of crucial things I'd probably say as well. Once you get to that stage of working with a few people, not just one person, because you'll work with one person for a long time and get used to the way they do it. The day you work with that second person, you're like, oh wow, some people do it completely differently.
Yeah.
But over time now, I'm starting to take different aspects of different people's work that I'm like, oh, they do that really good, or that really good, then not so good.
And develop your own taste.
And put that into my work and try and combine all of that to make me better at my job.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty good advice, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on.
It's alright, thanks for having me.
For anyone who wants to sort of look at your work and what you...
Yeah, they can find me on Instagram as Mounts Photos. I'm sure there'll be a link in the description. And equally, like, to anyone that's interested or like wants some advice or wants to learn anything, my DMs are open, I can be contacted. I also have harveymountford.com if anyone wants to look at my portfolio work and sort of see about that. Some of them have little stories attached so you can understand sort of the the backstory of the day.
Oh, nice.
But yeah.
Beautiful.
Love it.
Lovely.
Thank you very much.
That's all right. Thank you very much.
What I like about Harvey, right, is he quite suits podcasting. He was quite calm, collected. He gave, we feel like we're sometimes trying to make people who aren't used to speaking about themselves in this type of way kind of feel more comfortable. He was quite a comfortable guest, was quite happy kind of talking through the points in his career, but also because neither of us are in. I mean, we're not far away. Like, I'm an actor, so I have an awareness of the world, and you're not void with cameras, but neither of us are near videographer, DOPs, like anything like this. And he spun us a really good yarn in terms of like making it relevant to people who are in that industry, but also digestible just for anyone really. And I think a lot of his lessons, are about like how he kept himself motivated and how he managed to keep jobs, which I think is relevant to any career, isn't it? Like, if you're a music, like, let's take something that he said, like, about the work for free thing. In my life, I have got work by doing something for free as a favour.
Yeah.
It's a fact. So there is some weight to it. Obviously, we're in a privileged position because I had the time and ability to be able to do that for free. I didn't have any kids or a house to pay for in that time. What about you?
I think so. The one main thing that I actually took away from it, so I guess my part of the podcast really is to look after the video and the filming of everything, minus the shot that you took. That's all going to Gaz. But the one thing that he told me with this camera that I went away and did almost immediately was I can watch as many YouTube videos as I want. I can learn the theory behind how this thing works. But what I actually ended up doing is challenging myself to go out and take as many pictures as I can whenever I can and just learn how it works.
Was that from him specifically?
Yeah. Nice. So as soon as he said that, I was like, how do I get better at learning how to use this camera? And it's a compact camera, so it's not easy to go around and, like, I've got big meadows outside. To shoot nature, you need massive cameras, all these things. So it's given me a creative challenge to use this camera now. And hopefully the shot's a little bit better. Hopefully you can see I'm learning as I use it. But it's such a simple part of a piece of advice. Like, it's probably the first thing that you go and say is practice, go and do it. But, I think coming into something like photography, people do kind of think that it's going to be pretty easy. You just need to take as much as you can, but...
Okay, so I'm an amateur. I want to get into this now. Right, no, my little brother's... I don't have a little brother, but my little brother's 15, right? And he's called Todd.
Okay, Todd.
He wants to get into this now.
Yeah.
We've listened to this episode. What can we say to Todd to think about how he might be able to infiltrate or at least take some steps to be able to move forward in this type of industry? The first thing I'd say is get yourself a piece of gear. Go on YouTube, look at loads of gear. get yourself a piece of gear that you're inspired by and that you like the look of and the feel of and that suits your vibe.
I remember, like, with this industry in particular as well, the second-hand market is massive. I'd say the same with instruments as well. True. Like, a lot of people think that you got to go in and you got to go buy it fresh, whereas you can find some really cheap gear that's really good. Like, you know, if I find a Mexican Strat, I can find it way cheaper online, even though it does the exact same thing. One thing I would have taken away from his episode as well is, like, put yourself out there. Even if 30 people don't respond to you, but that 31st person does, and he just lets you come onto the set for a day and have a look around and basically just sort of look after the official photographers, you're getting a whole wealth of experience that you wouldn't get just being by yourself practicing or, like, trying to learn from videos again, as we sort of mentioned. And
about the interning thing that he said about working for free, it's a great opportunity, really. You know, if you have that, you know, to be, I'll come and just assist on a shoot. He got so good at shooting because he was always on shoots.
Yeah,
he was always on shoots.
Well, he's surrounded by people who are doing it, right?
Yeah, and I'm just for a bit of context, we saw him in a gig. God, what, 2-3 days ago?
2 days ago.
And he showed me his like Apple calendar, and it was just full.
Yeah.
Of like shoots, full of shoots. So, you know, he's not kind of like, he practices what he preaches. He books himself up. Do you know what I mean? And he likes, I think one thing that's clear is he likes to be on a shoot.
Yeah.
He enjoys it.
He does.
So he's happy to do it for free and therefore over the moon when he gets £50 for it, therefore works his bloody arse off. It would make sense to me.
I think one big takeaway I got from it too. So we very much started the podcast trying to find people who would bump into musicians along the way or help them in their career. And, you know, when we went to him originally, it was all about music videos. But what I actually got from talking to him outside of the podcast and in as well is that wasn't the thing that he always wanted to talk about. There was always so much more with it. And if you're going into photography, you can sort of niche yourself into something, but to keep yourself available for more jobs and more opportunities, he actually delved into areas that
advertising,
like you mentioned, marathons.
Marathons.
Who gets those opportunities to just do marathons? You can't. You kind of got to. He was offered that. It was a new challenge he hadn't experienced before, and he just delved into it, which I thought was really cool. And I guess the final point as well that I took from it that you highlighted in the episode was the sort of storyboarding and the creative influence. You're not there to capture a video. You're there to actually
tell a story.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of that will come across in all the creative people that we speak to. Is like fundamentally what makes you better than your opponent is not whether you've got a flashier camera, is if you're understanding what the story is, particularly with advertising.
Yeah.
What's the story? I want a big juicy burger. Like if it looks vintage and crackly, but you can't see the burger, like you've got it's always a battle, isn't it, between like your creative input and actually like the service of the job.
Yeah.
I think he has a good brain for that. But he probably got that from doing so many bloody shoots.
Yeah.
Like that's a fact. Really, what he did that worked is do it all the time.
Yeah.
So there's your lesson. There's your lesson. Do it all the freaking time, man. See what we got next.
So we've got Becky next.
Becky Bridge, jazz pianist. She's one of the first, well, not the first because of Harvey, but one of the first people that we've had that's making some bloody revenue.
And it's nice. Her full career as well, right?
It certainly is on the way to being. She does do other things as well, but it's she earns money doing music, which is more than we do. She is a very good musician. She works in bands, but she also sings quite a lot of weddings. And she does like a lot of social media promo for her weddings, which we thought could be interesting.
Oh, it's really, yeah. So
because it's like it's like what is you're appealing to. There's a good word of mouth in weddings.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of ask her that is, how do you impress a bride that then tells? Because I imagine that there's a lot of that.
In such a saturated market as well. How do you find those people? Because I would have just assumed that you go on Facebook and find wedding bands or something. Well, like you said, word of mouth are being passed around. If she's been quite active in a way that I didn't think wedding singers or people of that industry could be, but she's actually getting in the faces of people that haven't seen her before, rather than just sort of hoping that people give her a good name.
And hopefully we'll maybe play something with her, because she's better than us, and it will kind of annoy us. But yeah, so she'll be on next, and then we've got a couple of other exciting ones in the pipeline, and then we'll probably be coming to the end of season 1 with episode 10. We're gonna be back soon, but we're gonna stick with 10. Take a little bit of a break, try and catch up on some stuff.
Just see what works. I guess as I said at the start, we trying something different every time with the formula to see what sort of clicks. So I think from a season 2 standpoint, from my perspective anyway, I love to analyse what we've got through season 1, look at just how we can make the best season coming out of it. But yeah, see you next 2 weeks. Let's just get ourselves ready on.
Making a fucking mentor, making a fucking mentor, making a fucking mentor. I'm actually so shit. I'm actually deeply terrible.
Okay, instead that's the outro clip.